So welcome here today, everyone. What I'd like to do is talk about tone production today. And we make sounds on a cello a whole bunch of different ways. There are the most obvious ones, like tapping on an instrument, using the bow and pizzicato. And I'd like to sort of work on a few of those. Every once in a while, I'm asked to perform something where I have to like tap the instrument, and there are different portions of the instrument that make different sounds. For instance, here, I'll make sure that. Oh yeah, is everybody getting sound from me? Yeah. Okay. Good. So these are fairly like similar kinds of sounds. Fine. Let me get rid of that little error button. Okay. And so that was, I think, what made instruments really amazing, is that we were hitting wood a lot. But some woods sound better than others. And that's how we figured out that maple is such an amazing wood for making instruments. Typically it's maple here, and then a spruce right here, which is a pine. But sometimes I've seen cellos made out of poplar, and some cellos made out of other kinds of woods. But maple has this tremendous musical quality. When you thump on it, on a piece of maple, it really makes a good sound. Okay, rosewood is another a very musical kind of wood, and but it's much more dense. So it's used oftentimes in percussion instruments and things like that. So, but maple is much more workable, and that's how we get that sound. It's like the singing tree. That's what they call it. Next, I would like to talk about, so try tapping on different parts of your instruments and figure out where the sounds are cool. Strangely enough, this is also the best way to tell if you have an opening on your instrument. And if you tap around the side, if anything suddenly sounds higher pitched, like snap, like maybe two pieces of wood slamming against each other. I wonder about that, actually. Do you hear that difference? I have a feeling it's nothing. But anyway, sometimes an instrument will open up at the seams, and it's designed to do that with the glue is a lighter glue. Okay, so the most likely damage you'll receive from like weather-related things, like changes in humidity, will be an opening at the seams, and those are quite easily glued back together. Okay, so you find the tapping sort of things like that. Okay, next is we pulled some strings over the bridge, but this bridge is also quite a high-pitched musical thing, because it is the main way that sound gets through from your strings to your instrument, okay, to the resonating part of your instrument, the singing part. And so if you flick that, it is a very high-pitched sound because it's under a lot of pressure, and it's very dense. Try that out. Okay. Next, strings used to be made out of animal materials, specifically gut. Okay, and they would dry them and pull them and twist them into strings, and that was the first plucking kind of sound that we had. More recently, and only in the last 100 years or so, have people had metal core, steel core strings, and they found that if they made the strings thin enough, they could get the same kind of feel as traditional gut strings, but they just sound a little bit brighter, and they just have a bigger instrumental sound. Every once in a while, you'll see people with gut strings. They happen on basses a lot more, and then also in Baroque music. So instrumentalists who are trying to find that older sound will use strings made out of gut. Okay, they don't last quite as long, but they have a very nice warm kind of sound, and it's sort of like the original sound of the instrument. But we have typically steel strings wrapped in nickel or silver. That's the standard wrapping. So there's actually a flat wrapping that goes around the strings that gives it another kind of sheen of sound. If it were just the metal wire going through, it has a very abrasive kind of sound, and a very when you use it with a bow, it just sounds very like almost like fingers on a chalkboard kind of sound. It's just much more intense, and so there's a wrapping around the strings. And sometimes maybe on your school instruments you've seen the wrapping sort of come undone, especially like right around here or right around here. It'll sort of open up on an older set of strings that that is beginning to fray. It'll fray right here at these points. Okay, so check for those little bits. Sometimes you'll find it, and new strings are fairly easy to pick up, especially mail order these days. We've figured out our supply chain. Okay, and so yeah, check in right in here. Every once in a while too, I'll find them on A strings, like in school instruments, right around where everybody plays. So there'll be a little bit of a fraying right here, and that more than anything just kind of hurts your fingers, you know, like it's a little hard on the fingers. So do any of you have any fraying of the strings around in different places? Okay, good. All right. Next on this is the very first string usage. It was plucking. Okay, and this is, I think, this is a less respected way to play the cello, because we only have 4 strings, right? And it's not like you have, like, you know, 50 strings like on a harp, or 6 strings on a guitar. So we tend to, and the bow sounds so nice that we tend to forget about plucking. And plucking, I think, to get a big sound, check this out. If I pull up, then what I have to do is I have to stop my finger up here, and then I have to bring it back. And that stopping makes a muscle movement that plucks here and makes it pull. It also pulls the string at an angle away from the fingerboard, which a string first vibrates this way, and then it starts to vibrate in a circular pattern, making more and more of a circle as it plucks. Okay, so you'll first see the vibration go, and then it will go like this. Okay, it's the way the string vibrates, and so it has a very different kind of sound. Ooh, hear that? There's a moment where the harmonic takes off over it, and that is the point where the string has changed shape in its movement. Okay. Now, in order to get a really big sound, you'll want to pluck against the next string. So practice that kind of plucking where the string, where the note goes. You pluck down against the string, and what that does is it causes the string to vibrate sideways, and you can pluck it really big. You can make the biggest sound imaginable on pizzicato if you pluck it down and straight across. Now there's one other thing. Have you ever seen sometimes they will have a mark above the note, and it's called a Bartok Pitz, or a snap pitz, okay? And that will, strangely enough, they'll often use the marking for a thumb position, which is a little 0 with a line down. They'll often have that as the Bartok snap pitz. And what you do here is you grab it with 2 strings, and you pull up, and then you release it. And what it does is it plucks against, it hits against the fingerboard. So I'm taking these 2 fingers, and you can't do it very fast. It's kind of a special activity. But it works on all the notes too. Okay, so if we were to play like a C major scale from the bottom up to 4th finger C, let's all do that. Ready? And we have a C, and a D, and an E, and an F, and a G, and an A, and a B, and a C. got that kind of sound to it. Okay, and so it's almost like a snare. And funnily enough, I have a snare drum just sitting around because I'm a music dork that way. And what's happening here is that you're hearing this sound, but what is playing are these snares here. Okay, and the one thing that makes it the sympathetic vibrations from the back of the instrument or top vibrate this. Okay, you can see some slow-mo sometimes on YouTube. They'll show some slow-mo of string vibrating or of a drum. And you can see my hand hitting over here on the video. That's just the shadow, and there's the actual hit. Now you release it by turning a knob, and then it no longer hits. And then you can have kind of a half and a full, which has a little bit more resonance. Okay, drums are also tuned to a certain pitch with a key. Okay, and they will tune the drums to different songs as well, so that the drums sound in tune. You probably haven't seen this because you haven't been in band yet, and specifically, we string players don't hang out with the percussionists, sadly, as much as we should. But they will tune them to, say, E, and if a piece is suddenly in E flat, they'll tune them ever so slightly lower in E flat. And this one has looks like six different parts of the drum head, and they will try and even them all out so that they are so they're in tune with each other. Okay. From what I understand, this is a fairly well in tune snare drum. Okay. Now, we didn't always have this particular tuning. Early cellos had a different kind of tuning. Viola da gambas, from whence these instruments come, had wildly different tunings based upon the needs of the piece. And we find that Bach, in his solo cello suites, sometimes asked for the tuning to be different. Okay, so like in the fifth suite, he asks for the A to be tuned down to a G, so that I need to grab a bow. It requires a slightly different fingering, I've discovered here. Here's my D, here's my E and F sharp, and G. Okay, so that is the tuning for the fifth Bach suite. There's a version with what's called original tuning, which is this, and for normal tuning, depending on your version. I actually learned the fifth suite with just the regular tuning, but I think I'm going to go back and learn it with this because it sounds crazy. Try yours. I mean, don't retune, but like hear the difference between your instrument. Ooh. Yeah. Makes the chords all different. So now instead of barring across one like a 2-2, you have to do 2-4 to get a fifth. Okay, I'm going to bring this back. Next in the tone production realm is the bow. Okay, and so the bow is created. The bow is like at some point in time they figured out that they could that they could. I don't know if somebody had a horse close by and they tried to pull it on a string or something like that. But you were using every part of the animal, you know, and so they probably had this and were using it for different kinds of things like brushes, and then eventually the full length for things like maybe even clothing, and then thread. And then they thought, well, this thing's really strong. What if we tie a whole bunch of them together and we can pull the string? That forms the basis of our string instrument technology. Is horsehair on gut strings on a wood instrument that resonates. It's all very like there's just a lot of natural fibers involved in this. It's kind of a cool sound. Next. In Eastern European music, they didn't really say like that the tunings were ADGC for a long time, and this was sort of like in your big cultural centers. You would have tunings, like you'd go to Berlin and you would have, and the orchestra would tune to like a certain kind of A, and Vienna would have a different one, and Paris would have a different one, and London would have a different one. And so sometimes in among village instruments, they would say like, oh well, let's do a different tuning here. Zoltan Kodály wrote a fabulous solo cello piece. Instruments acting up just a little bit. Which he tunes the lower strings down half step, and you can do this at home. This is totally fine. It'll be a little bit of a pain getting it back, but what happens here is that let me play my B, my C against your C. Go ahead and play. Okay, and I'm going to play my G. Weird, huh? Okay. But what it does is it gives a whole different kind of sound. If I play all four notes across the whole, across all four, what's called a quad stop, and I just play this B right here, it becomes B minor. And so now, instead of the sort of normal fingering, we have a different set of fingerings, but it sounds very strange, very exotic, right? And so Kodály makes a whole piece that, and I'll just play a little bit of it for you. Just as far as I can remember. And then I can't remember how that. But that's the idea. I'll tell you what, I'll bring it back tomorrow. Remind me, like, you were gonna play the Kodály. That's Kodaly. Kodály. I'm gonna retune it back up. Strings like to be tuned lower, but once you tune them higher, you run the risk of breaking them because they're rather brittle, and they tend to. Let me see if I think I need to bring the G. There we go. Cello's sounding a little strange. Let me just get a real tune on this thing. There we go. And here we go. Woo, pretty sharp. D is on the money. G is on the money. Ah, C is super flat. That's why. There we go. Hold on just a second. Let me detune. Many of you who have had me coach in your middle schools have had me like detune all of the fine tuners, right? There we go. Getting close. Oops, too far. Yeah, I find it super fun to tune the instruments, but they retune them to different things, but it takes forever to get them back. And I'm just using my it may take a while to get back in. Okay, so next, tone production. Now that we've got this thing turned in, we soon figured out that we can play a whole bunch of different places. Now, the standard place to play in orchestra, sadly or not, is to play right up here on the. You're thinking, oh, I don't want to bump into anybody, and I don't want to get caught playing the wrong note, right? So we tend to play way up here and play quietly. We're thinking, oh well, I won't make too much of a ripple in the group. And so oftentimes we end up not really hearing ourselves play because we're constantly playing in an orchestra, and also we don't want to like stick out. We want to sort of be part of the group. Well, try this. Let's play an open G. Right on top of the fingerboard. I mean, at the edge of the fingerboard. Okay. Now, sometimes your teachers have talked about lanes, right? Sometimes I'd say there are like three main parts of playing. We have a sul tasto, an arco or normale, and we have a sul ponticello. And everything else is sort of nuanced within what needs to take place for the sound. So right here is the sul tasto. Tasto is the fingerboard. And then let's move the bow down to the middle. And we'll get a much bigger sound. Many of you who've been taking lessons from me have heard me say, okay, we need to get the sound down here, like make a much bigger sound. We talk a lot about making sure that the bow goes in a straight line as well. Now the sound continues to get more and more focused and intense as it goes down here. But it becomes a little higher. Yeah, go ahead and try that. Until it starts to break apart, and then we're only playing the harmonic. And that is ponticello. And that kind of sounds like a Zoom call anyway. Go ahead and try that right on the bridge with ponticello. Okay, so that it really sounds like a. Okay, now if we come back off that, even by like half an inch. And then if we come into the middle, it's kind of like our workaday kind of sound. is that change of sound coming off in your own speakers? Are you hearing a difference in sound between sul tasto and normale and focus and ponticello? Yeah, you are hearing that? Okay, great. All right, so that is the basis of our sound making. We take this wood, which has a resonance to it. If you go out to a maple tree and you thump on it with a hammer, it will sound. It will make sound. Okay, and that's where we get this. Where we get this wood. And they tried lots of different kinds of woods, and they keep coming back to, you know, the reliable ones, the ones that have the best sonic qualities. Okay, strings originally from gut, from animals, pulled tight and dried and twisted for strength. Okay, so that it's more like a cable. Okay, and I think that's probably where we got cables from anyway. Then they are wrapped, and some gut strings are just plain gut, and others are also wrapped with a metal wrapping, which is where that first came from. And then eventually they went with steel strings, and then sometimes new plastics are involved. These two strings have a plastic core called perlon, and then they're wrapped in tungsten, which is a kind of metal. Okay, and so they have they're trying to replicate the gut sound of the instrument. And I don't think they did a very good job of replicating gut. What they did was they made a really bright sound, which cellists also love. And so it's become a very popular string. This is made by Spiracor, which is a German company. And okay, so that's the string technology. Bows and horsehair is one thing that has not really changed. We haven't really come up with a nylon equivalent. Though some of you may have nylon hair, like on a glazer bow. If your bow is made out of fiberglass, oftentimes it will have a nylon filament, nylon string that replicates the horsehair. Okay. And then the rosin largely comes from tree sap, which is kind of crazy. You could probably make your own if you wanted to, and I think that that's how we get different kinds of rosin. Is different violin makers will say, you know what, I'm going to go out and tap a tree, and we're going to go find a different kind of rosin. This particular rosin smells a little bit more piney than the other rosins that I've used, but it's the same technology that's been used for maybe 1,000 years to get traction on things. Okay, so that's our tone production. I'm going to do topics. Let's play. Oh, good. Let's play just a little bit of something today and make up a little bit of something. Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to start a musical phrase. Okay, and it's going to repeat, and then I want you to each sort of come on with a different kind of musical melody. Okay, and we want to and will you please add in your microphones? Okay. And we're just going to make something up. I'm going to start in G. And I'm just going to keep this going. 2, 3. Okay. Now, with that, will you play notes that fit? Like D's and G's. And then one of you might like to add an A or a B. One nice note to play below my G is a D on the C string. Boom, boom. Will one of you play pizzicato? somebody's got something like this. You know, like somebody come in with some eighth notes. 2, 3. Bum, 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 Now, just for fun, let's end the class with like our cello style of applause, which is a tremolo. So we just want to make a big sound. Come on. Yeah. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. We'll have some other things, and I'll play a little bit more of the Kodai. You sound great. Take care, everybody.